Um, but yes, and I don't know if it's Microsoft Word shifting things around, but again, APA formatting is 12 font times New Roman, the font that I hate the most. I'm an elementary school person, so I like cute font. But when we're doing graduate work, it has to be in that way. Um, so just be mindful of that.
A quick
And I
question.
am,
When we quote the writer, we do insert the page numbers, correct?
when you quote the writer,
Okay.
quoting the writer means it's in parentheses, not
Okay.
parentheses, I'm sorry, quotations. You picked it up out the book and you placed it in your writing.
Correct.
Then you do the parentheses
Mm-hmm.
with the authors, comma,
The
2015,
year, correct.
and the page number. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're not doing a direct quote, it
Okay.
should not be a page number.
Okay. And then if we have a third page, like a third page or one or two sentences, is that okay? Or do you want us to stick to 2 pages?
I prefer 2 pages.
Got it.
And I'm gonna tell y'all why I prefer 2 pages. It's a lot of y'all, and it's a lot of grading when you're reading. And I read every paper, every line of every paper. I am not a skimmer. So when we get into 4 pages, that's about 6 or 7 minutes, especially if I'm putting comments in and it slows down, you getting your work back in a timely manner. I have one other group of, I think, papers that need to be graded, and it's your Ron Clark video write-ups, and I'll get those done. I'm not going to say this weekend because I know it's not going to happen this weekend, but they will be done by Wednesday of next week. I'm trying to pace it all out, but I've been to DC twice in 2 weeks, and so it's like my life is not catching up with me yet. But I will get those in, and I do like for you to get your grades back in a timely manner because that's the only way to make corrections to the next set of writing. Any other questions before we jump into it? All right, no more questions. I did read the comments in the chat. I will do that, Miss Ayers and Miss, I think that's Courtney. I don't know what to do for that part. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's jump right in. So part of this course is looking at professional growth. And everybody's familiar with the evaluation systems because everybody gets evaluated. And if you're not getting evaluated, you're getting evaluated. You just didn't get the signing of the paper because everyone has to be formally observed at least twice a year. And so we will look at the professional growth rubric for Mississippi. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see the document. And this document is available on the MDE website if you ever need it. And it's also in your Canvas module. All righty. So this is the teacher growth rubric. It gives a lot of information about how you would go in and perform observations. This is what most administrators use in terms of when they come in your classrooms to check for what is it, high instructional quality teaching and learning. So this is what most of them use. Your district may have created their own and they're using their own. But this is what the state has put out for every school in the state of Mississippi. And I like to stop on this page just to have a little bit of conversation around the observation and feedback cycle. So the purpose of this method of observing teachers is that it's not a one and done. It's not that you walk in a teacher's classroom on one day of the year and check to see if that teacher is effectively teaching a class. So the way it should be done is that you're getting informal observations throughout the school year. And once a semester, you're getting that one formal observation. And so when you look at this wheel, You talk that the principal does the classroom observation. They're looking for clear, specific, actionable, and timely. Well, the teacher's looking for timely feedback. So after the observation, there should be a point where the teacher and the observer have a discussion about what they saw, what went well, what needs to be improved. Then there should be a moment where the teacher has a moment to change the practice if there's some things that need to be changed. And then that observer goes back in and observe again in order to follow up and provide additional feedback. So that's pretty much the cycle. And I don't know how it's done all over the state in different schools. My assistant and I take our roster and we split our roster in half. And she will take half for 9 weeks and I will take half for 9 weeks, and then we swap. And these are informal observations. And we do these every other week intentionally. And I say intentionally because I create a calendar. I send that calendar to my teachers because I don't want them to think, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were coming. They know what time I'm coming. They know what time their feedback is when they need to come see me. So it's very organized. And I always try to keep that the main thing. My front office staff has my schedule, so they know where I am. So if there is something going on, if a parent is irate and upset, they will say, I'm sorry, she's in an observation. She has a free hour at this time if you'd like to come back and speak with her. So those types of things are in place. Ms. Ayers, go ahead and ask your question.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I've been waiting to ask you this question because what if you're an administrator and you have no assistant principal? How would you suggest finagling a productive schedule of evaluations when you are of yourself? How would you make that work?
So most times when there's not an assistant principal, there's about what, 25 teachers?
We have 20, 28.
28. So it's a heavy load, but you split that in two. And that's week 1 and week 2. So week 1, you get in and see all of the teachers on that list, and then it rotates to the other group of teachers for week 2. I have about 22 on my roster alone because I do have a larger staff. And that's why I have an AP. And she has about 19 teachers to my 20-ish teachers. But this is just certified staff. This isn't your assistant teachers. And I do observe my specials teachers. I go into music and art because those areas of life matter to me. You need to teach at the same rigor and passion as my teachers in a classroom that are teaching ELA and math, science, and social studies. But you have to be intentional, you have to schedule it, and you have to split it in two in order to get in to see the people.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We're gonna do a little short activity here in just a minute that'll you'll have a collecting form where you get to record the evidence from what you've seen in the lesson. And then we'll talk about the sorting form because for this assignment that you have coming up later, you'll have to do something similar watching a teacher teach via YouTube video. And then the feedback part, and I tell my teachers all the time, the observation is cool. I love walking in the room. I love sitting at a group and working with kids when I'm in there. But the bigger thing for me is the feedback, because to have that discussion with the teacher and for them to tell me, oh, this is what went well, is the thing for me that I feel like helps all of us be reflective practitioners. Because when a reflective practitioner already knows, like, my group that I was pulling doing the independent activity was not focused, that activity was, a little bit too difficult for them. That's being reflective of the work that you're doing as a practitioner. So those things are very important. So here's the other portion of this, and then we're gonna get out of this document. But understanding that per state regulations, again, I'm not speaking of district, I'm telling you what the state has designed. Your school should give 3 minimum observations per year. 2 of those are informal, unannounced. 1 is an announced formal. And there should be high quality feedback after each observation. It should not be a sticky note. It should not be, please come sign your form, where there's no discussion about it. Because in order for everyone to get on the same page, to know expectations, and to move forward, the feedback is essential. And we talked about in domain 2 how we need to be transparent. So that's being very transparent. All right, so that's all I'm going to go through in this document. Again, go back, read through it, just peruse it if you've never.
Dr. Cockrell,
Yes, ma'am.
after we do this, would you advise maybe us sitting in on an observation with our mentor?
I do believe that is part of one of your mentor things that you have to do when you get your hours. I do believe that's still on that list.
Do you think we should do it this early on, or?
If your mentor doesn't mind you shadowing and walking with her doing some of that, I would always encourage it.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah. To be honest, this is one of the most important parts of your job. The discipline is going to happen. You're going to have to deal with kids. You're going to have to deal with parents. Those things happen without you doing anything, but the actual getting into classrooms, actually watching what's going on and providing feedback, that is you being an instructional leader. The more you are in classrooms, the more you're guiding PLCs, that is the instructional piece. That's when you're not just being an organizational manager, but you being the instructional leader. So anytime you can do that, it would be for your benefit.
I have a question, if possible. For the observations, there's several videos there, different grade levels and different subject areas. What would you recommend, for example? Should we choose a video, for example, like if I'm ELA or language as a second language, should I choose a math video, or what do you recommend?
Whichever one you're most comfortable with.
Okay.
Yeah. Because here's the thing, if I'm like, I don't know anything about Spanish. If I walked in a high school Spanish classroom, I don't know anything about Spanish, but what I do know is student engagement. I know what it looks like when I walk in a classroom and students are engaged and the teacher is teaching. In my building, we call it being in the power zone. And I know when a teacher is in the power zone because you can look at her students and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm learning something. You can see it. So that's the thing about good teaching and learning. It doesn't matter the content area. You can tell if a kid is engaged. You can tell if kids are learning. And you also can tell if the teacher has absolutely no control of what's going on in that classroom. So yes, whichever grade or subject area that makes you most comfortable. All right, so I need everyone, if you can, take a sheet of paper out. And you're going to fold that sheet of paper in what us elementary people call the hot dog fold. That means it's the long way. And on one side, you're going to put teacher, and on the other side, you'll put student. So very simple. So what we're going to do, we have a simple activity. I'm going to show you two different videos. One is of a kindergarten teacher teaching a group of kindergartners. She is herding cats for real. Because I'll just leave it there. I'll let y'all see for yourself. What you're taking notes on is what the teacher is doing and what the student is doing. And it's very general. It doesn't have to be don't write a paragraph. Don't. Just script out what you see in the short clip, okay? Everybody got that? Okay. Let me make sure I have the right video up and ready. Kindergarten. All right. Everyone should be able to see my video. If you cannot hear it, someone please do like the hand raise gesture or something so I'll know to turn the volume up. All right, are we ready?
Can you try doing some thinking for a moment? Because I was thinking about the books, two of the stories we've read. Dominic, off the top. Oh. I was thinking about spring. No. And I was thinking about the story Down the Hill. And I was thinking, Davion, I was thinking about some of the things that are the same about the stories and some of the things that are different. CJ, in your spot sitting up. I was thinking about some of the things that are the same and some of the things that are different. We're going to put those things up here on what we call a Venn diagram. Can you say that? Venn diagram. Oh, one more time. Say it. Venn diagram. In order to do this, I'm going to need your help. So first, I need you to push your body close. Not too close. Remember, don't touch the person in front of you. Let's go. Look, there's room right here. Scoot up. CJ, you need to be out from under the table. Okay, eyes right here. Thank you, Kieja. Eyes are up here. She's ready to learn. James is ready. Okay. Now I'm going to need a scout. A scout is going to be someone who watches, someone who's being responsible, sitting up. Dominic, would you?
All right. So this is the point where you take your computer off mute. Tell me some things that you witnessed in the video that the teacher is doing, the student is doing, and when we talk about going back to student engagement, students being on task, that sort of thing.
It looks like she was unorganized, did not have any clear procedures at the beginning, and instructions, and the children were completely disengaged.
Okay.
Ditto.
Well, I think
Ditto.
All right, April.
I was just
well, I'm
agreeing
a kindergarten teacher. So I can't relate. They're not gonna all be still. They're gonna wiggle. They're gonna move. However, she didn't give clear expectations beginning her lesson, but it sounded like she were trying to give expectations. But I do agree about the clear expectation of what they need to do: hands in their laps, listening ears. But she did redirect. And she was trying to get them together, but I do believe she was not so organized. But it's kind of hard when you're teaching kindergartners because they're gonna move, they're gonna wiggle. But I do believe she could have gave more clear expectation. But I did notice she redirected a few of them.
I've noticed that she redirected, and then towards the end of the video, she also was praising the positive behavior,
Yeah.
which is big. Oh, maybe she should have done that more consistently, but that was definitely a positive in her
Right.
bucket.
She was also trying to model, like trying to find a scout. So to display that correct behavior in the classroom so they could pay attention and be attentive to the skill that she was trying to teach, which the skill itself is kind of hard because even middle school students don't understand it. So maybe to have started with something more simple, which we don't know the prior lesson, but maybe with something more simple and then moved on to the Venn diagram that she was displaying on the, but yeah, the students were off task. She was trying to redirect the whole time and then lots of disruption. So it's hard for learning to take place when there is so much disruption in the classroom.
Right.
Maybe centers, maybe being in centers would have been better.
Right.
I'm
To me,
thinking if she was, I'm sorry.
No, I was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, just to kind of piggyback on everyone's thing, because that's everything y'all said I had just about on my list. And I felt like she had to redirect too much because her expectations were not clear from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But then she tried to bring it all back in full circle with getting a scout to you know, but it was almost like closing the gate when the cow's already gone.
All right, Chris,
It,
I know
it
you're
had
trying
got
to get in there.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It was a lot of gentle redirection. She didn't raise her voice. She wasn't a professional. She had uh, a, a bit of disruption going on, but she was able to gently redirect her kids. I teach life skills, so I have a lot of redirection, special needs kids. She was able to explain what they were doing, and she asked for the scout, someone to model the correct behavior, and so that's what I was writing down.
Yes.
I also kind of agree with, pretty much what everybody was saying, but I give it to her. She didn't completely shut down. She didn't stop. She kept on going. She was trying to redirect. She's trying to, get them into the lesson. A few of them were listening by moving up, whenever she was directing them. But, my mom was a kindergarten assistant for 10 years. It's rough with them.
It's herding cats. I'm telling you, get them in the basket and somebody's going to jump out.
It's like squirrel.
It is.
Also, body language is very important because I mean the body language is 75% of the whole language. So she was sitting down. When you have that much disruption, maybe it's time to stand up, because when you're sitting down at eye level, they think that you are right there with them. But if you stand up, then you kind of reinforce the rule that this is serious. I think that could have probably resolved a little bit of discipline, but that's just my opinion.
I agree with a lot of your
And I
comments.
feel that,
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jeffrey.
yes, I feel that, I don't know if this was our first time gathering them together, because they should already know the rules and expectation when we come into that center. And that's what I noticed. Like, she didn't have control. That should have been already established in previous time. That she wouldn't have all those destructive behavior that was going on in the class. That's my take on that.
So I'm going to switch gears just for a moment in terms of observations and feedback. When I go into a classroom, I have done, it's called Dr. Rutherford's Artesian Teacher. It's a method or a practice. And when you go in, you look for the positives and never acknowledge the negatives unless it's a situation where the negatives outweigh the positives. If you walk in a classroom and you cannot see any teaching and learning going on, then you would have a conversation about best practices. So whenever I walk into a classroom, I go in looking for all the good things that are going on. Everyone's not going to be a strong classroom manager. I always say to people, I need to go back and find that very first group of kids that I taught. They're all adults now, and just say, I am so sorry. First of all, I wasn't that old. And then second of all, I probably didn't manage y'all very well. But if you look for the positive, you can always find something. I did like the fact that she opened up with the objective for the day. Even if they were squirrely birds, they knew exactly what they were supposed to learn in that day. She did frame her lesson. I like the positive language. Every time she redirected a student, she complimented a student, or she restated the expectations over and over. That is the way to start a conversation with the teacher in a feedback. Because at the end of the day, think about it as a teacher. When your principal comes in to do an observation, the minute they walk out, you start going through your mind all the negative things that happened during that observation. No one does that but me. Oh, okay. And so you know all the things. In your mind, you're like, ooh, when she leaves, I'm gonna get you. You know better. You shouldn't be up. We say all these things to ourselves. Like, you know the expectation. You don't go put something in the trash can in the middle of my teaching. These things happen because kids are kids, right? And even on the best recorded lesson, those of you who've done national boards, aren't we happy we can take a retake on that video? Because we're videoing it. So when little Johnny blurts something out that he shouldn't have, we can hit, okay, let's just redo. So teachers don't get that in a formal observation. That is why informal observations are the most essential. And I tell my teachers, I don't want a dog and pony show. I want you to just teach. Don't put a cute lesson together because I'm coming for your formal. Do what you're going to do on Wednesday because it's Wednesday. I've been in the classrooms enough times to know exactly what you're doing, just walking through or just informally. So I always look for the good. That was that whole spiel. So draw a line. We're going to look at another class. So just draw a line under all of that. And then you're going to see an older group of students. They're not high school. I'm sorry, all my high school folk. But they're older group.
Dr. Cockrell, I'm sorry, before you start that, could you tell us the name of that book that you said that you used, Dr. Rutherford?
It is Dr. Rutherford's, oh gosh, it's not a book. He has a whole website. Let me figure out. If you Google him, you will find his stuff, but it's called the Artisan Teacher. That is the name of the website. The Artisan Teacher. And his premise is there are 23 talents that a teacher displays. Not every teacher is going to have all the talents. We all have weaknesses in certain areas, but instead of focusing on the weakness, you praise the talents and encourage growth in those areas. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. He has a whole website. He'll come to your school for a whole lot of money to do a whole lot of professional development.
So it's pretty much what we tell our students. For every negative, there is a positive. Make sure. Okay.
For every negative, you should have 4 positive. That's a PBIS PBIS plug for y'all for today. All right, so we're gonna move to the second video, and you're just observing the things that the teacher does and the student does. Okay, that did not work. Why isn't it going? Okay. Give me a second here. Let me redo that. Okay, so the video is there. All right, now we're seeing it.
What are we here to learn? We are. I can identify the main idea and supporting details from what I read and create a summary using the supporting details. Okay, give yourself a pat on the back if you're ready. Okay, let's turn those papers over that you have on your desk. This is your opportunity to do a closed reading activity where you read that article. You can use your pencil to highlight any information that you think will help you in finding the main idea. We're going to be using the reading cards, the blue reading cards. So when you're done, simply turn it over so we'll know when we can move on. You may begin. Got it on your read. Feel free to mark it at this time. Water striders. Imagine yourself zooming across the top of a pond or lake without sinking in. While this might be hard for you to do, it is easy for a water strider. Useful for rowing and steering across the. We are going to play bingo while we answer the questions today. You have some spiders that you're going to use as your markers. Here's how the game will be played. Your entire group is one team. I will tell you what row or column we're working on at that time. Whenever I show you what row or column we're working on, your team is going to try to find the answers to those questions. They must be highlighted in the text, and you must be able to tell me where you found it with the paragraph and the sentence number. Here we go. The first thing we're going to work on is across the top. What insect does a water strider resemble? How would you describe the size of a water strider? What fact can you select to show the speed of a water strider? Go.
The large mosquito. It looks like a large mosquito. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so put a spider right there.
What's your answer gonna be?
Which is, a large mosquito.
Okay.
The size of a large.
You're gonna find it in the text. You have to be able to highlight it to use it for an answer. What fact can you select to show the speed of a water strider? Abby has an answer. Share it, Abby. What did you see?
I saw sentence 5, group 1, water spiders also have
Go on and finish.
good vision and can move quickly.
Awesome job. Awesome. Okay, I heard my first group, water striders. I heard it. Okay, let's see if they've got it. Now they're going to help you out because remember when we respond, the first thing we do is tell the paragraph, then the sentence number, then we give our fact, but then we answer our question. And I'm going to type the answer up here. That way you'll make sure you've highlighted the correct section. Here we go. Which insect does a water strider resemble? Hudson, can you tell me where you found that answer?
Paragraph 2, sentence 1, a water strider is a water bug that looks like a large mosquito.
Okay, so he said paragraph 2, sentence 1. And what is your answer then?
Large mosquito.
A large mosquito. He is correct. Looking good. Next one.
I'm sure everyone has great thoughts around this video. Go ahead.
She is very detailed in explaining what the kids are supposed to be doing. She reinforces it all throughout the lesson. The kids are very much engaged. She encourages all members of the group to participate. She doesn't just let one of them respond. She's asking the other girl, what, you have an idea. So it was good teaching.
I
Yeah,
noticed that she
I
walked
think
around. I'm sorry.
Go
She
ahead.
was walking around the classroom listening to the groups. If they, were stuck on the question, she did, provide them some assistance there. Like she said, she gave them praise. I like the positive praise she did at the end when they got the correct answer. And like she said, all the students were engaged, and she was very organized. Looked like she had the materials already on in the groups for them.
what
Go
stood
ahead.
out to me first was when they first came into class, she had the objective already on the board, and every student that came in was already looking at the objective and knew where everything was. And when she put them in a group, everybody was engaged, and she went through every group and engaged with every student. And it seems like that she had it in place already, like from the beginning of school, like what she expectation for each child and how to respect one another when they're talking. Because as the young man was talking, no one spoke. Everybody paid attention to what he was saying.
What I liked personally is that she addressed all the learning styles, which is very important. The VARC, which was the vision, the audio, reading, they were reading, and then kinesthetic, they were moving around and playing a video game. So to me, that was very important. Is because I teach EL. So, and then they were engaged at all times. It was hands-on learning, and showing evidence is very important. So, which it helps them a lot with MAP as well. So, to perform better on a state test. So, teaching on point.
I
And
want to
learning on
piggyback
point.
on everything everybody else had said. And one thing that really stood out to me, that she did not teach from her desk. She stood up, she was teaching, she was in the center, she had all their attention. Very well done.
In the power zone. You can't see kids learning at your desk.
I agree with what everyone has said, but something else that stood out to me was that she did not tell the kids who immediately stood up to work to sit down. You know, some of our kids are a little squirrely, and if they sit for long periods of time, they can't focus. But she didn't hone in on everybody has to be seated. She knew what that group needed to be on task and in function, and she didn't bother with that. And she also made sure to spend a little extra time, it seemed, with the groups who needed more support than the others. That goes back to that active teaching, like someone else mentioned.
I also like the fact that at the end, before she came back, she was giving the groups that had them met the objective to go out and reach and teach the other groups. So the peer learning, I really like that about this video. One other thing that I know probably it's not a negative, but to me, listen, you can tell that she has her class organized, but I felt like sometimes that through the steps, there might have been too many steps at one time. That maybe she could have chunked it, like say, do you understand? Give the children time for feedback and understanding, not assuming that everybody understood. I just didn't. So that was one thing that I saw.
I had that down as well.
In the beginning, I was like, oh my God, she's talking so much for these kids because they look like they're like 9 or 10 years old. And I was like, she's giving so much information. I don't know that they're going to remember every single thing that she's talking to them about. But as soon as she, let them begin their own independent work, it was so obvious. It was like a well-oiled machine. Those kids knew exactly what to do. They knew the materials they should be using. And then their transition, even from their independent work into their group work, was so smooth. You can tell that's something that she had implemented from the beginning of the year with those kids.
Yes, I would agree to all the comments. It's an older group of kids. And I always say that if the kindergarten teachers don't train them to sit and do, the 4th grade, 5th grade teachers aren't going to be able to get them to actually work together cooperatively. It's a system. It starts in kindergarten and it builds. Her lesson was very well organized. Her activities were very organized. There was only one thing in that video I would have questioned when she walked over to group 2 and the guy was answering and she said, oh, and told the little girl to answer. That was the only point in the video. I was like, why did she let him finish? He was so eager. But she did a great lesson. So with that being said, we're going to transition and I'm going to show you guys the sorting forms. And I'm doing this a little bit out of order because my last group's feedback after we did this activity, this was their thought that it should have been in that order. So I'm going to try it. Okay, so let's look at, this is going to be no, that's the wrong one. It's going to play whatever I have left. Hold on just a second. Now there, scripting form. That's what I want to look at first, is the scripting form. Okay. All right, so this is one of 2 forms that you have to turn in for this assignment. Let me say that again. This is one of 2 forms that you have to turn in for this assignment. On this one, you are literally doing the observation, okay? And you do not have to worry about this part. I don't need the time listed because it's a YouTube video and I don't want you trying to figure out if I'm at 12.13 seconds in the, that's just too much. All you're gonna document is what the teacher's doing and what the student is learning, okay? And you will do that on this form and turn it in. Here's the thing about this form that I want y'all to understand. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, where you will type up here and it'll show the exact same thing down here. If you would like to go on there, when you pull it up in your module, print it and handwrite on it and then scan it and send it to me, I am perfectly fine with that. You don't have to try to make this work on this document. Because if you notice, it has the exact same information here because I typed it here. The PDF, if you have PDF editor, and I do, it may work. But even on my editor, it just seems to put the same information twice. Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Should it be in a bullet form or do you want it in a paragraph form?
I am not particular either way. I am a bullet person. I bullet point everything. And normally when I'm doing notes, it looks like this. So I can't type today either. So it's general, and I always use TT here and I always use TS over here. It's just how I've always done it. And that's why I haven't changed it. And you see it typed it again down there. So what you're being most observant of are these domains. This is the whole point of this. When your administrator turns in your growth rubric, and we all turn them in about June, July, the state of Mississippi starts asking for them. These are the areas that you're being rated on. Domain 1, the lesson design. Is it aligned to standards and represent a coherent sequence of learning? As you're watching these videos, you probably won't see all of this. And because you don't have prior learning, so you don't know what was taught before, you won't know if it's a high level of learning for all students. So some of these you may be able to kind of just say, okay, yes, this is high level of learning. I can see a depth of knowledge that the teacher's teaching, but some you may not. Student understanding. Teacher assists students in taking responsibility for learning and monitoring students' learning. The video we just watched, we could see that. She walked to every group to make sure kids were on task and they were learning. She was up moving around, so we know she was monitoring student learning. Teacher provides multiple ways for students to make meaning of content. If you see it, you can rate it. If you don't, you can't. So that's why I say all the time, when you're never ever gonna see all four domains at work at one time. It's not possible. You may go in for an observation, especially if this is still part of your practicum hours. You may go in and see a lot of culture and learning environment. You may go in and the teacher's done a room transformation. You may go in and see that how the teacher is managing the environment, like we talked about in the first one, giving that positive praise, redirections that are restating the expectation. The one that is the hardest to see is domain 4, because you can't see that in an observation. You don't know what professional learning the teacher is doing and if she's maintaining effective communication with families and guardians. So that's not something I would expect from you on this observation. What I'm going to be looking for on this document is that you fill this part out. And everyone isn't going to get down the exact same information. The thing about an observation, especially a face-to-face one, like walking in a classroom, it is a quick assessment. Like they're talking, they're learning, they're doing things, and you miss some of the things. So don't feel like you got to get every word on this document, okay? Any questions about this before we move to the second form?
That is a continuation, right? From the top to the bottom, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's what I wanted to make sure.
Yes, you just keep going.
This is my video that
I can't, you're breaking up. I can't understand.
I said this form is found on the module, correct?
Yes, it's in the module. You can pull it from there.
But it's based on the videos that we just watched.
No. I'm gonna get to that in just a second, okay?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Ask the questions. It's the best time to do it. Okay, did your screen change?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Good morning. Which one did you say we would not be able to answer? I was trying to write it down.
You won't see domain 4, the professional responsibilities.
Okay, thank you.
You won't see that on a classroom observation. You would have to be in the building with that teacher, knowing what they're doing, okay? All right, so this is the second form, the second of the 2 that you will turn in at one time. This is the part of it, the evidence sorting form. A lot of schools, include mine, I don't ask the teachers to put together a portfolio anymore. I don't need, well, ever say anymore. We've never done that. It's not like y'all don't have enough to do. But this is when you can rate the evidence to support that you believe this person is doing the domains. So when you're doing your videos, you're going to circle whether it's a 4, 3, 2, or a 1 in the domain 1 lesson design. And these are the ways that that person will get a 4. So are the the activities aligned to the current college and career standards or framework? Are part of a coherent and focused sequence of learning. So just read through those, but this section is just gonna be your domain 1, the lesson design. So you will circle one of these, and in this space right here, you would write in what you observed in that video that shows you that that person is a 4 or that person is a 3, 2, or 1. And that's how you would document on this form. And so you should be able to do at least domain 1, and then that's domain 2. I'm sorry, that's the second part of domain 1, where it has high levels of learning for all students. So you should be able to document that from what you've observed in the video, and then support it with evidence. What did you see in the video that made you rate a 4, 3, 2, or 1? And then you'll get into domain 2, student understanding. Circle which level, tell where you saw it in the video for your evidence. And domain 2 has a couple of parts to it. And then you'll get into managing a learning focused classroom community. If you cannot tell that in there, then what you will put in evidence is NA, and you don't rate it. And I expect everyone, when they get to domain 4, to just put NA, because you don't know that. You don't know the professional responsibilities from the people on the video. So that part there will be NA for you. So you'll have to write that. Again, these documents, you can print them off and write on them. Like, just make sure you're using legible handwriting. I can read kindergartners' handwriting, so I should be able to make it out. Adult handwriting to me seems to be a little bit more difficult than the students, though. Any questions about this form?
Dr. Cockrell, real quick, I know when I go into the classroom with the students, I always, like, if I'm working with them on their we have different names for it, the individual success plan, or the academic career plan, I always remind them that I've sent home the messages to the parents. Make sure your parents are reading the messages I send through Parent Square. Would that, if a teacher is going through the lesson or reviewing something, or they state that in the actual class while you're observing, would it then fall underneath that, or do you actually have to see them doing it?
The professional responsibilities part?
Yes, ma'am.
No, if you're in, like, that's what I'm saying, from the videos, you can't observe that. But in a classroom setting, you can observe that.
Okay.
If you're sitting in PLCs, you know the teachers who are turning in their things to their principal or their counselor. Like, we have a gazillion things that have to be turned in. You know, if the gen ed teacher is making their IEP meetings or their LSP meetings, you know whether or not those teachers are actually doing their professional responsibilities.
So
And that,
as the principal or the observer, or the evaluator, if I have a formal evaluation with the teacher, I do it, then I ask them to come to my office to review it. Can I then at that point ask them to bring examples of documentation evidence that they keep communication with their parents
as
to
an
help me rate
administrator, yes.
this?
Yes,
Okay.
you can as an administrator. You can ask for whatever you want to ask for.
Okay.
That's part of the job.
Dr. Cockrell, I have a question,
Mhm.
an administrative question. I was told by a principal last year that when you're giving your observations, you want to make sure that you don't put all your teachers as a 3 or 4, because if they're saying your whole school is full of 4 teachers and you're a D, then there's some, misconstruedness and something's going on. So as an administrator, what is your, are you grading them specifically on what they're doing, or do you have a ratio?
Here's my thing, and this is my personal opinion. If I'm a 4, you give me a 4. I will fight you on that in a meeting. I'm just being honest. In a feedback loop, I don't want to hear, well, everybody in our school can't be a 4, so you're a 3. So you gonna make me a 3 because the person down the hall is a 3. Lies.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. As a teacher, that was always my viewpoint, and I would always go back. I wouldn't say it in that moment if I'm a little bit like feelings crushed, but I would go back and have a second meeting over my evaluation. I have done that in the past. I had a principal that was new tell me one year, well, I'm not completely sure of all of the things that you're teaching kids because I've never taught elementary. Well, that's your growth. That's not mine. So you're not going to make my growth punitive because your growth isn't there yet. So no, I literally give my teachers what they've earned. And if that is, we do distinguished, and that's the highest level. And I think I only hire the best. I feel like my teachers are the best. So do I have a lot of distinguished teachers? Yes, I do. Professional responsibility is the area where I have a percentage of teachers that get proficient. Because when I look at professional responsibilities, I look at, are you the person who's spearheading things on your hall? Are you the person that shows up to all the meetings? Are you the person that we have character of the month? Did you turn your person name in? Or am I hearing my counselor say, so-and-so needs to get your character of the month in because we got to, order for whatever gift they're getting. So those are the types of things that I look for. Are you the person that on Thursdays we have PLCs? That's your daily absence day. Like that to me is professional responsibility. Do you like to go to workshops? Are you just growing yourself as an educator? Candace, you have a question.
This year with our teachers, we did a Friday faculty focus meeting where we met with them during their planning block, and we kind of explained the rubric to them. And I think it was really helpful to our teachers because everyone thinks they're a 4, but when you really get down and start looking at the 4, even like our teacher of the year for the district, like she was like, I'm not reaching out and finding my own PLCs. I'm not leading this. I'm not doing that. And we have fantastic teachers, but to be a 4 across the board, it's a lot. So I think the teachers seeing that, from an admin perspective of this is what it says. This is the language difference between a 3, which is a really good teacher, to a 4, which is like a national teacher of the year. Just to explain that to them, I think that they were A, appreciative, and then B, like they could see where they had room to grow if they wanted to grow and be a 4.
So you look at it as a national teacher. And I guess that's the difference. When I look at it in terms of my expectation. So you're not growing. I'm not judging you nationally because I don't go to national classrooms. So I can't base your teaching off a teacher in Ohio. I can base your teaching off of the 50, how many teachers I got? 57 teachers in the building. And compared to your peers, where do you rank? And I guess that's my way of looking at it. And our district has its own rating scale. And as I read through each one of the bullet points under it, when I'm doing a formal observation, I write whether or not I see each of those bullet point things. And if I don't see them, then you're right. You're proficient. You haven't made it to the level of distinguished. I had a new teacher who asked, what do I need to do to get to distinguished? Because I'm just proficient. I said, for one, you won't be distinguished in effective teaching this year. This is your first year in this content area. This is your first year teaching in my building. This is your growing year. Be okay with proficient because you haven't learned the standards yet to be distinguished. So I agree 100%. It takes a lot to be distinguished, and you have to be okay with being a 3 or proficient. But you have to talk to your people so they can be okay with it. Why am I not? If you explain the expectations, you explain the rubric, people are more comfortable with their score.
So
I hear administrators say a lot like, okay, I'm not going to rate you a 4 because if I rate you a 4, then when I come back, that's the max. I'm not going to get, like, not personal to me, but I hear that a lot. Like, that's the max. So you are not going to grow anymore. You're going to be fossilized. And that's, that's not right either. It's like,
that's
it's okay.
not
If
true.
I'm a 4, I'm a 4.
That's not true.
That's so you hear that a lot. If I rate you a 4, then you're not going to grow anymore.
Well,
so I got to show
I've
growth.
heard Superintendents even say that. So it's gonna be based off who you are as an administrator. Most things that we do as administrators, it goes back to the things that we've talked about, you've written about in this class. It goes back to what your values are. It goes back to what you say in your PLCs when you go back to the culture and climate of your building. And I will give y'all a perfect example. I had a teacher who's been distinguished before I became the principal. She's been distinguished her whole time. I've gone back through her folder. She was always distinguished. And well, she dropped the ball on some parent communication, not one time. If it had happened one time, I could just say, okay, let's just bite the dust on it and let her stay distinguished. But it had happened over the course of months. And therefore, she wasn't distinguished in that area. And my comment, and this is how I question it, is it worth it? Is it worth it for me to give her a proficient in this area and for her to walk around mad for 4 months? My answer to that question was yes, because I don't need this to happen again. She'd be mad at me, but ultimately, hopefully she will be reflective and decide I should have done something different. All right, Candace.
Just real quick. So like with the teacher rubric, like one of the things that's the difference between like a 3 and a 4 is like it emphasizes all students versus mostly all students. Is that some like part of the conversation you have with your teachers? You're like, I know you're doing this. I'm just not seeing it with everyone in your class. You know, that kid who was under the table in the kindergarten video, I couldn't say he was taking hold of his learning, you know, like he's under the table. Or like domain 7, the difference between a 3 and a 4 is that you fostered a classroom atmosphere that students are giving each other praise, which is one of the areas I struggled in. My kids won't tell each other they're doing good because they're high school freshmen, and that's uncool to tell your friend he's doing a great job getting that answer right.
So if you notice in the second video is part of her classroom culture. She said, all right, guys, let's snap a picture. And they all did it. That's part of her culture. So here, I'm going to answer your question, the first part of it. When I sit down with a teacher, because I am a coach as well, I have gone through coaching university at Mississippi State so that I am a certified coach. I sit down and ask suggestive questions. Not suggestive questions, I'm sorry, probing questions. I don't suggest anything. I don't tell you what you did wrong. That's not my goal. Again, I want my teachers to be reflective practitioners. Just like a doctor has to reflect on a surgery, teachers have to reflect on their teaching. So I sit down with them and I talk to them about, so what did you see going great? And they'll tell me all the things. And then I'll say, okay, well, we got the good things. Anything else you want to share? And that's when they start telling me like, well, the student, I don't know why he was on the floor today. Maybe mom didn't give medicine. You know, we talk through those things because again, teachers, we are the worst at critiquing ourselves. It's just making it not be a situation where the teacher's getting down on themselves, but being reflective, because these two things are different. I can talk about, oh gosh, I failed at that. I did awful at that. But to be reflective is saying he didn't take his medicine, blah, blah, blah. What are the things do you do when he doesn't have his medicine? Then that's reflecting. Oh, I should have asked him to sit at his desk. I should have given him a squishy so he could get the energy out. That's being reflective. So the next time that happens, and I notice that as a teacher, I have a toolbox full of strategies I can pull out. So that's being reflective. Everything I do in coaching is to get teachers to actually figure it out for themselves without being that person who says you did this, and this wrong, and this, and this right. People walk away with only the negative and they never hear the positive. And I would rather build a teacher up than to strip them down, because guys, no one wants to teach anymore. So when you go into administration, be nice to your teachers. Say kind things, because people don't want to work for mean people. Any other questions about it?
No, just a statement. You're gonna have a across the state informative on that. About principals not being mean to their teacher.
Oh, okay. I felt that, Jeremy. I felt the underlying current of that. I'm sorry that there are people out there that are still that way. Y'all, I do a lot of national work with Mississippi Association of Elementary School Administrators, and across the world, right across the United States right now, there are no teachers, y'all. When I tell you in 2010, 4,000 people graduated out of a teacher ed program. In 2022, that number dwindled to 300 nationally, not Mississippi. People have to retire. You know, we have to grow our people. And I always say you got to be kind to them. Even the teacher that's the worst one in your building that you have to put on an improvement plan. Even in an improvement plan, it is not to fire you. We have such a negative connotation to an improvement plan that most people think, oh God, I'm about to be fired. I've had to have that conversation with the teacher. I'm trying to help you grow. If you stick with me and you stick with this plan and we grow together, next year is going to be better than this year. It's not to fire people. We don't have any people to hire. I did interviews Monday and Tuesday of this week. I did between Monday and Tuesday, 13 interviews, and we only like 2 people. And that's by the rubric. We don't sit in there and just talk. We have a question set, we rate a rubric, and we score. 2 people is out of 70 points. We're in the 60s. Y'all, the pool is shallow. So we have to be kind as administrators. All right, I'm off my soapbox and we're going to move now to the Canvas shell.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yes.
Observation evidence sorting form, option A, that's the one for the video, correct? Just to be...
Both of them. Well, the one where you're collecting the evidence, yes, that goes on that form where you're doing like the teacher did, the student did. The evidence is where you rate the 4, 3, 2, 1, and then provide evidence as to how you support that score you gave.
So this forms are for both in the classroom and also watching the videos, correct?
Yes. Well, you're not going in a classroom. That's why I'm getting to this part so we can talk about what the assignment actually entails. All right. We're already done with this week. Let me scroll up again. Not that one. So your evaluations aren't due to April 21st. I'm gonna find it, I promise. Here we go. So with this assignment, and just going back to what you just asked, you're gonna turn in the scripting form A, as well as the observation evidence form, sorting form. Those 2 documents need to be together when you upload them. And I don't care if you type on them or if you handwrite on them, either or is fine for me as long as you write legibly. Okay, so the videos are here. So the videos, and you're only choosing 1 video to rate. You can do the 3rd grade ELA, there's a 6th grade, a 4th, and then a 10th grade, and just trying to give some variety for, different areas. Okay, the rubric is here. I don't know if y'all read the rubrics, but please do, because I do follow them as closely as I can. So the scripting form is worth 20 points. So if you upload one and not the other, you're only getting 20 points. And I'm not going to write a note in there that says you left a form out. I'm giving you 20 points. Okay. Share that with the people who are not on the call. The second part of this assignment is the narrative. Okay. So you have 3 things you're having to upload. I'm going to repeat that because this is, and I know y'all think, oh, she's being real, over the top. I've had so many students not turn all these things in and plummet their grade because they don't turn all these things in. So let's go back. You're going to turn the scripting form, the sorting form, and then in Microsoft Word, PDF, however you want to do it, you're going to do the narrative part. Candace, I'll come back to you in just a moment. You're going to do the narrative part. In the first paragraph of the narrative, you have to cover what occurred during the observation. And in that paragraph, you will lose points If you do not include the expected number of evaluations and what type is required per MDE guidelines. And if you remember, when I pulled up that first document, I shared that with you. I tell every class, I tell right out what is expected. So you know what to put in your write-up, okay? Now, paragraph 2 is a reflection, okay? I don't care if you use I, me, my, or whatever in paragraph 2. Okay? Paragraph 2 should cover your feelings about doing this assignment. What areas of this assignment were difficult for you? How will this help you in the future as an administrator? There is 3 parts to paragraph 2. Feelings, areas of difficulty, how I felt about it, and did I feel like it was difficult? That's one part. The second part, feelings, areas of difficulty, and how will it help me in the future as an educator? There's 3 parts to that to get 20 points. Okay? And then for your paragraph 1, keep in mind, if you leave out this part about MDE and what is required for MDEs by MDE standards, you won't get the 20 points. Okay? And if you leave out a sorting form, you won't get those 20 points. And we all know APA format. Paragraph 1 is in third person. When you do your reflection, you can say I, me, my, all you like. I don't mind. All right, Candace, your question.
It said we needed to include the timestamps in that rubric, but earlier you mentioned that that was not going to be a thing, so we won't be documenting timestamps.
If you want to put those timestamps, that's fine. But for me, I don't care what time in that video that happened. I'm just being honest, okay? I don't really look at the timestamps as much as I look at what you actually witnessed as you watched the video.
And then for APA format, when we click on those videos, will it bring us to a YouTube channel where we can cite that properly? Perfect. Thank you.
One more question. What did you say about the third person?
When you're using paragraph 1, okay, this is where you're talking about, you're talking about the evidence, and you're talking about, my brain took a break. In paragraph 1, you're going to talk about the Mississippi guidelines and the rubric. I want that in third person. As an administrator, you must administer blah, blah, blah formals, blah, blah, blah informals per MDE guidelines. I want that to be in third person, okay? Because paragraph 1, I'm going to read it out to you. Paragraph 1 of the narrative form of the evaluation briefly covered what occurred during the observation and also included the expected number of evaluations and what type is required in a given year according to MDE's guidelines. So as you're going to talk about what you saw in that video that you watched, and you're going to talk about how many observations you have to have. Very brief. This shouldn't be more than 3/4 or a whole page. It shouldn't be 2 or 3 pages. It really shouldn't.
Dr. Cockrell, do we have to, on our reference page, put the MDE website where we're getting those things from?
If you want to.
Okay.
I'm not gonna be a stickler about that part because I put it into it's in the module. So it's not like you literally have to go to MDE site to get it. So no, I'm again not a stickler about that. All right, any other questions about this part of it?
Yes. Do we actually need a reference page on this assignment?
You do for your video.
For the video, okay.
And if you use anything from your textbook, you would need to put that in there. But if you don't, then no. It will be for the video. Any additional questions? Okay. So this week, you're only turning in your group of assignment. That's it for tomorrow. And we've talked about that form and what needs to be turned in. It's just the box. Delete all the things off of that sheet and turn in the box. It does need a cover letter, a cover sheet, not letter, cover sheet. And then that page for your document and upload your data. Every time you turn in your data, your group assignment, this data project should have the data attached to it. On your cover page, everyone in your group should be listed on there with your name.
A question, if possible. Can we insert the data at the bottom of the block of that page as a link, as a URL, instead of uploading it as a...
I would prefer it to be just a uploaded document. You can upload multiple documents in that Dropbox. Y'all do realize that, right? It can take more than one document.
Okay, thank you.
One last question. Do each member of the group need to turn in
Yes, ma'am. Everyone has to turn their own assignment in order for me to provide you a grade in the Canvas module. That's just the way this system is set up. You have to literally turn something in. And everyone should look the same.
Thank you.
I want to stop for a minute, and I know those of you guys that are in the specialist ED students, that assignment for the best practice group project. Just for a hot second, let me review that with the students who are completing that. When you do this project, you are not having to do, let me go back. You're going to take 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school, and you're going to pull out best practices for each level. And you will document that if you want to do a PowerPoint, if you want to do it in Microsoft Word, you have the autonomy to decide how you want to do that. With that assignment, you're just going to give best practices. If it is scheduling, if it is PBIS, if it is, oh, my brain took a break, whatever it is, just document those things, a slide per grade level, and turn that in. It's just best practices. Any questions from you guys on this project?
Do we have to write a paragraph for each best practice?
No.
Do we need to attach evidences for those things? Like because in the video she said take a picture if you...
Well, that when she says take a picture, so let me just say, if you did a PowerPoint, right? And I put like our discipline is class dojo. So they had like a picture of a class dojo they put on that slide to make it pretty or to show what they're actually using. If it's scheduling, some people have like a schedule on there where they chop, just as graphics. But not artifacts, more like a graphic. Instead of you turning in 15 documents to support what you put in there, it's more like making it appealing. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you talk about scheduling, is that like the master schedule, like scheduling students?
The master schedule is best practices.
I just want to make
sure.
sure.
Are you at the elementary or middle level? Elementary or middle?
I'm the middle school counselor, and I do the whole master schedule and scheduling.
So
that's my job.
It's a lot to that job as well, and having kids placed in the right place at the right time is a big deal, especially if they're in sports or, that is a big deal. That is best practices. I'm going to get these kiddos math first thing in the morning because they struggle in the afternoon, or that works with their schedule because they have football at the 8th block, so that is part of best practices. We schedule kids accordingly.
Okay.
All right. All right, so week 5, we're back to our domains, 3 and 4. I think by now everyone has a pretty decent handle on this assignment. 2 questions, answer each question with enough content that I get that you understand what those domains represent. Don't use first person. If you do those 2 things, you should be successful. That's a light week for next week. Just one thing to look at. And then once we get into week 6, you are now looking at the second part of your SMART goals assignment. Let's see, can I get that to open? So now this is when you are looking at your goals. So you need 2 areas that you taking the 2 areas you identified as needing improvement, and you're adding the strategies that you're going to implement to target those 2 areas, where that you're going to talk about exactly, if it is main idea in detail, we're going to do these things to make sure we're doing what's best to shore those areas up. Wait, where's my tip? Oh, gotta go back. So looking at the rubric, because again, I follow it quite closely. Your data is attached. Current data is included with the SMART goals. That is 10 whole points. If the data is not attached, you lose for that. You have 2 SMART goals that have been created, and you've already gotten that on the first assignment. Those goals are measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. And you have 2 strategies that are realistic. Okay. And then we get to the narrative part, because in this one you will do a narrative. And yes, the question has always been, does everybody narrative needs to be the same? Yes, that's how I know you actually worked as a group. So the narrative has to identify possible root causes and explain how root causes can be identified and addressed as part of a plan. Root causes, guys. We're post-COVID. The couple of groups always wanted to put COVID, so I always use that as an example. But if we're looking at root causes, it has to be something that you yourself as an educator can mediate. You can help those kids in that area. Absenteeism is a big root cause to 80% of why kids struggle. They don't come to school. If they came to school, they get the instruction, they'd be better in that area. So yes, is that a root cause? Yes, it is. How do you help kids with that? If you pick it as a root cause, you have to address it in your plan. So making sure we don't put a root cause without addressing it, because you only get half of the points.
I have a question. May I?
Yes.
On goal for the part 2 of SMART goals. So for goal number 1, for example, do we take the lowest, like if they scored 33%? So the goal for it, for example, will be the 9th grade student. We pick biology, performing at the current level, which is 33% falls under 2A, and increase to, so the first goal is going to be lower than the second goal. And then we meet the district goal of 63%. That's where I'm kind of unclear.
I don't think I
goal 1 and
quite
2.
understood your question. Ask it
Okay.
again.
So the goal number 1, for example, we have biology benchmark scores, and the students scored at 33%. So the first goal will be for the percentage of 9th grade students performing at current level 2A, passing increase from 33% to 63%. That's the first goal, for example, correct? And then
Okay.
the second goal, do we state it like from, because I said from 33 in first goal, so the second goal will be from 41% to 63%.
No,
Okay.
no. You're talking about percentages. I'm talking
Correct.
about standards.
Okay.
So your 2 areas of weakness, you're going to identify the 2 standards.
Okay, perfect.
So when you start talking about your strategies, what are the strategies to move that 33% to meet your district goal? By teaching those standards. Like, what are we going to do to target these standards? Everything we do for the goal for our data project is not focused on, it's focused on the percentages and moving the percentages, but we move percentages by looking at the deficits in the standards and reteaching those standards.
Correct. But the goal, how would you state the goal? Because like the strategies, I've listed them down, but the goal, how would you state the goal? In percentages? I'll ask after class. I'll
Yeah,
show you
because
what I have.
I'm truly not, and it may be one of those simple things that I'm overthinking. I do that from time to time.
Well, maybe I'm not explaining correctly either. So,
Well, no, I think you are. Let me do this so I can help with that. Give me just a second. Let me do this right here. Hold on just a second, Candace. I see your hand. Let's see here. Where is that? Nope.
maybe my group can pitch in on that because I already sent them the template. If you want to help me out with the explanation.
No.
of the
Okay,
SMART
so
goal.
this is where I need to be. So when we start talking about the actual goals, so here is where you're listing those 2 areas of weakness, okay? So once you get that developed, everything else centers around those standards. I can't.
Time. I don't want to waste your time. I'm talking about number 2, part 2. The one is clear, is the standard. I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's
part
where
2
we,
is
okay. Part
yes.
2, when you do the chart where you're talking about the attainable, all of that.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
You will list exactly what you are trying to get to. Yes.
Okay. Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I was making that way more complicated.
No, I don't think I explained. I didn't say part 2. So for the part 2, increase it. It's 33% to increase it to 63%. And then the goal number 2 would be from 41 to 63. Would that be correct stated?
If that's your goal?
Yes, because one time to have the school goal and then to beat that with a match it to the district goal. So
Yes,
that will be
you
correct.
will decide your goal, like where you're trying to get them. And everyone will look just a little bit different. So in that, right, yes, that is correct. Yes, Candace.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna follow up her question in just a second. So like our goal would be something like by May 1st, students will master standard XYZ with 60% mastery. And then our strategy would be something like pulling students for remediation, teaching a concept of like ours is on slope because it's algebra, but during remediation, we could talk about coordinate planes, identifying points, anything related to slope that's a building block for the next as a strategy. And then the third part, the root causes, our root cause could be inadequate math knowledge, or we need something more specific than that.
Math to me is one of those really, really neat subjects because if a kid can't multiply, they can't do certain skills at a higher level. If a kid is missing the prerequisites to something, so math, you literally can dwindle down where the deficit falls. And yes, that's all you're listing is the root cause. They were not, this student has struggled in math since kindergarten, 1st grade, 6th grade, whatever. And the skill of this was not taught. So the kid is struggling in this, or the group as a whole.
The group of kids, because we're not looking at specific.
No, the group.
We're not looking at Johnny had 80 absences. We're just talking about in general, they missed slope. So by default, they must have missed something in 8th grade. And we can generally say that it either wasn't taught adequately or potentially wasn't grasped by the large number of students, and our remediation could focus on that.
Yes. And anytime, and this is a me thing, even in ELA, if a student, if it's a group of kids, like I'll tell y'all for our last data, we have a group of 4th grade kids that cannot read and analyze poetry right now. Like this is so crazy because on benchmark 2, they mastered it. Benchmark 3, they took a little dip. And I say a little dip, but they're still in the blue. But at the same time, we look at whether they stay the same or some things change. So yes, and you just go in and identify. And like I said, in math, if it, like, I can't tell you anything about algebra, I'm not going to pretend to know, that you know what precedes them learning slope, like you know what they should have had in prior knowledge. So yes.
Dr. Cockrell, when we're doing like the SMART goal, our first SMART goal, you have underneath strategies 1 and 2, but if we have more strategies, we can put them on there, right?
Yes.
Okay, and the person responsible would be either like the classroom teacher or say the instructional coach or a behavior, I mean, an interventionist or whoever's doing those things with them.
Right.
It's
Yes.
especially if they're getting pulled by a different person.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we put stakeholders, community, and volunteers? Because no?
No, you have no control over what happens outside of your school.
Got it. With me.
Now, unless you have people like that are coming into your school to work with kids, then you can list them. But if you're just saying happenstance, these people will work with them, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Cockrell, also, our root causes won't be on this chart. It'll be in our narrative.
In your narrative.
Okay.
Yeah. All hearts and minds settled? Okay. So that will get us to April 7th when you turn that in, that part 2 of that. And then you guys will have domains 5 and 6 coming up the week of April 8th through the 14th. And the specialist EDD students will have their group project due. Don't forget to register for the summer and fall, April 8th through the 19th, because those classes sometimes fill up with other people trying to get in. We will have our last virtual face-to-face on Saturday, April 20th. And again, that is one of our quicker classes. We just meet and try to make sure everyone is moving along. And then that week also your growth rubric, teacher evaluation growth rubric will be due. And then your 6 domains PowerPoint project, and we'll talk about that when we do our next virtual. And that is it for our trimester. It goes by quickly when you think about it. And then you have a week 10 discussion, and pay attention to that date because it is not due on a Sunday. It is not. I always like to remind the cohorts that that is not due on a Sunday. So you do need to get it in. You don't have to respond to any classmates. There's no need to respond to other classmates. I read each and every last one of these because this is feedback for me. And if you, I mean, be honest, it truly be honest. Because again, I want to be a reflective practitioner, and the only way for me to be that is if I get feedback that helps the next cohort. Okay.
I have a question. The best practices assignment. When is that due?
It is due, we just talked, okay, right here. The
Okay.
week of April 8th through the 14th is due right.
Okay. Gotcha.
So you'll
I
turn
didn't see
domain
that
5
drop.
and 6 in that one.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any other questions about assignments?
And we have 5 best practices, not 10, because Dr. Seller said 10. So, but in the assignment, it's
5 per level. So 5
Thank you.
elementary, 5 middle, and 5 high. And
Got it.
past cohorts have divided it up. Let the elementary people come up with theirs, the middle people come up with theirs, and the high people come up with theirs. In order to, split, divide, and conquer. All right, no other questions. Let me make sure I've gone over everything.
Dr. Cockrell, when you finish going over everything, I do have a question for you. So are you
go ahead.
available to stay?
Okay, you want it after everyone's off. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And we've talked a lot about the best practices. I'm sorry to go back to that. I just want to just extra clarify with as far as APA is concerned with that. So my just general understanding is I get the 5. So we're interviewing our mentors ultimately and getting ideas from them of best practices that they utilize. We inserted a quick, graphic to make it look, relevant, a quick description of that best practice. And then on the very last slide would be a reference from those mentors that we've observed in APA format?
No. You don't have to add a reference for that, because that would
Okay.
mean everything you've listed, you'd have to go out and find the reference for it. Just because your principal is telling you about it, they're not the researcher behind it. So you would literally have to go pull that many references. So no, don't do that.
Just like, don't worry about listing who gave the information. These are just best practices observed and roll with it.
That's it.
Sounds good. Made it easy. Thank you.
I try. I think that is all I have. I like to make sure I keep notes, y'all. I'm old. I'm forgetful. If you have any questions, I'm sorry that I've been slow to respond to some of the emails and inboxes. Again, I have traveled way more this month than I've done in previous years, and it has really thrown me off with being on top of most things. And if someone needs to stay on after everyone else is off, you're more than welcome to do so. If you have a burning question that you don't want to put in the chat, you don't want to talk about in this format, please email me directly. I am going to say this. If you have group members that are not grouping, okay, and I know that's not a word, that aren't doing their part, I need the group that is working to send me a joint email, and one person can send it from your group that says Nicole has not done her bit. The three of us have done all of the work. I'm okay with that. And it is fine, because that person that doesn't do their work will get a 0. It's a group project. It's life. I'm sorry. Have I given a 0 before for this type of thing? Yes, I had a group member to go rogue and she did her whole project by herself, and then turned around and did the specialist project by herself. And I emailed 4 times. You can't do that. Never ever did I get a response. So she got 2 zeros. The worst grade she probably ever got from a college course was that year. And Dr. Sellers reached out and tried to explain it as well. So, I mean, it's a course. And just like you tell your students when you group them, sometimes we got to work with the kid we don't want to. It's life, you know? Sometimes we work with bosses we don't want to, and they're right. So we have to do what we have to do. But we also, in this course and at this level of college work, at this level, we have to adult and just do our part. And we're all busy, so that is not the excuse to use. We're all busy. That's the nature of what we do. Teaching is hard, teaching is busy, parenting is hard, parenting is busy, but we mesh it all together and we do the best we can. So if you have a person, please send me that unified email, because I need to know all hearts and minds are all thinking the same thing. Not that you're saying that person isn't working, but the other people think they are. So make sure you get that to me before this assignment is due at 11:59 and 59 seconds tomorrow night. Any
I
questions?
have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I remember you said on the cover sheet, because my group is about to meet after this call. We're meeting to
Okay.
finish up our stuff. And one question that I have, I know you said on the cover sheet that we need to include each group member's name. Do you want the name, the email, and the phone number, or just the name?
I'm okay with you listing everyone's name and just keep your email and things on there. Yeah.
Okay,
So
all right.
we can take the email off.
Yeah, I don't
We
need
submitted ours. So
Oh, well, then leave it. Don't go back and change it. That, again, not punitive. If you submitted it, leave it. Any other questions? Well, y'all have a great weekend. I hope the weather's nice everywhere. And if you need me, just inbox or email. I will get it. And those of you that need to stay on, just stay on. I'll see you all at the next virtual class,
be blessed. Stay safe.
and as you all as well.
Dr. Cockrell, is there any way you can pull up the data analysis for SMART goals assignment? Because I I'm like I said last time, I think I overthink things and I take things sometimes literally and like exactly the way your paper looks. I'm trying to, I don't want to miss something.
Oh, yeah, don't overthink it. Please don't.
I guess I'm gonna have to work on my meanness.
What do you mean? No. No one needs to be.
I deal a lot with the teachers getting their grades in, and I apologize to my group members. We had grades due for 9 weeks, and I was chasing after people to get their grades in.
Oh, I'm sure. Okay, so is this the template you're referring to?
Yes, ma'am. So if you scroll down, excuse me, at the bottom where it says the suggested things to do, above that you have some instructions. Is that where, do we restate what we put in the chart or do we not have that?
So let me reframe one more time. When you turn in part 1, the only thing I'm looking for is that right there.
Okay, and I understand that, but so
When
part
you do
2,
part 2, it generally is a chart. Most people put in a chart or a grid that lists out all the other things that have to be in there.
okay.
And I may be getting ahead of myself. Give me a
No,
second.
that's fine. I was like, because I saw the goals and stuff, so I was like, okay, maybe that's where we're supposed to put the suggested things to
All of
do.
that. Now that document I inherited that document. It is not my
Okay.
favorite. I really do need to tweak it. And that's going to be my suggestion to myself for next cohort.
Okay.
I don't think this is it either.
Oh, okay.
This is it.
Okay. That makes more sense.
This is what I would think you would be putting in, because this is what this is what has been given to me, and I like this format. Let me say,
Okay.
I don't like the listed format because it feels scattered on the page to me.
Yeah.
But if you put like SMART goal 1 is right here.
Okay.
This is what your goal is. These are my strategies we're going to do for it. These are the people responsible. This strategy, I got people for it. This is the timeline to get it done, the resources we're going to use, and the evidence. So that would be your second page.
Okay.
And then your third page is simply, well, you may have 2 pages of this because you got 2 of them. And then the next page will be your narrative.
Okay. All righty.
And that would complete that assignment. To me, this is easier. So that's why when we met last time, I said just delete everything off the bottom of that page, because it does make it more confusing. Because you're thinking, oh, I need to list this and put it here. When you really don't have to do all of those things.
Okay.
And see, that's the second goal. And this particular student literally just cut and paste the data up there. You don't actually, if you're having an issue with getting the data up there, as long as you put it in there with your assignment, it's okay if you don't cut and paste it to the top.
Okay.
Does that make more sense now that you're
Yes,
seeing?
ma'am, it does. And so the part 1, the part 2, and the narrative has to all be the same for the whole group. Correct? Okay.
Yes.
You want the narrative for the part 2 to be the same as well?
Yes, because that meant that would be y'all talking through it.
My group and I are currently talking about doing like a group Zoom to map all this stuff out. So we would still all just type the same thing and we all submit the same thing for part 2 like we did for part 1?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that our narratives didn't need to be different.
Because if you're all discussing the same thing, it's a group of 4 or 5 people. Somebody gets you guys discuss all the root causes and all of that, and somebody wants to type that up as part of divvying up the work. I'm trying to, make it easier as opposed to multiple people trying to get the same thing done.
I know I appreciate what Miss Heather has done, that she made an assignment where we're able to edit, or like a document where we're all able to edit to get, and make our input. That's been helpful, at least.
Well, good. I mean, anytime it's made to be a little bit simpler than before, it always works. Is Cheryl still on here? Cheryl, I need you to stay on after everyone else gets off, please.
Yes, ma'am. I'm still here.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you said attach the data to the form. Do you want like a link that takes you to the data? Do you want us to, because our data is in a PDF. So do you want us to submit the data and this? How will we attach the data to the form?
So in Dropbox, you can drop multiple,
Okay.
multiple things in there. So once you submit like your Word document or PDF of the charts, then the second thing you will upload will be your data.
Okay.
Sure. Are you in another group? This is Sean. Are you in another?
She unmute. One more thing, just for clarification, is the chart the only one on the paper that we're turning in? I know you said it multiple times, but I just want to make sure.
For this assignment today, yes, the only thing you're turning in today is the chart, a cover sheet with the chart. That's it. That's all that is due for activity project 1. When you turn in the second part is when you'll have your cover letter, the first project 1 chart. Don't ever leave that off because you're building. Then you'll have the other sheets that I just showed you with with all of the different things listed, and then your narrative. So you are growing the project as you're doing it.
All right, that's all. Thank you.
All right.
I tend to hyperventilate too. I guess I'm an overachiever. No, not really. Okay, just to be in the clear. Smart goals part 1. This, correct? And then this, correct?
Without all that stuff at the bottom.
Take off the stuff at the bottom. Nothing else. So none of this, just the top part. And then attach the data in a PDF.
That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Why do we complicate things so much? And then we wonder about kids, why they ask so many times.
It does happen. I just want it to be as simple as possible. If you spent time with your group doing all that suggested things, you're literally going to take that and put it in the chart later.
Yes.
So it's like doing double work as opposed to doing it one and done. I'm a one and done person. Quicker the better.
Yes. Less is more and more is less.
Yes, it is.
More is less.
That goes back to being an overachiever. Now I'm that person who wants to sleep, and so I can't overachieve as much as I used to. Now I'm trying to work on being a perfectionist.
Correct, but you've got the doctor in front of your name. We don't yet, so we're striving for that. So
William Carey, and I say this everywhere I go to people, William Carey is the best doctoral program thus far. I've gone to I got my bachelor's at Delta State. I got my master's at Mississippi College, my specialist at Mississippi College. Doing the doctoral program at William Carey, if you follow their format, when you're done with the program, you're done with your dissertation. I literally finished them together. Like people who do the dissertation 2-3 years after they're done with their coursework, I don't understand it. So William Carey, if you're looking into doing the dissertation part of it, getting your doctorate, stick with William Carey. It is the best.
I will. Yes, actually, Dr. Smith, Linda Smith. I was part of AmeriCorps, so I did that, and I got a big grant. Was nominated Teacher of the Year, and then Lumberton at the time had it was a high risk area for reading, and Dr. Smith was the principal. So I worked with her for 2 years, and we rocked and rolled. So I love her. So she was always being after me. It's like, you got to do it, Renata. You know better. So yes,
It's the hardest 2 years. It's the hardest 2 years of your life, but give it the 2 and be done.
Yes.
It is. I won't lie and say it's easy because I don't remember summers for those 2 years because I was working.
It's okay. God is going to part the waters. We're going to walk through. We'll make it. So, but I appreciate you very much. I know sometimes I get very antsy.
I'm that way. So you do not bother me. Believe it. I like things to be done in the right way.
Yes.
If you look at that rubric, you follow that rubric, you will be fine.
Yes, ma'am. All right. I appreciate you so very much. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
All right, ladies. I have Heather, Lashana. Is this the group?
Dr. Cockrell, I think you've answered all of my questions. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry if I keep on asking.
Oh, no, I prefer you to ask questions than to be confused later. And then the grade doesn't show up, the one that you want.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
please ask questions. I'm that
Okay.
same person.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right.
Hold on. Dr. Cockrell, I'm sorry. I
Mhm.
just admire your repertoire of your resume, and I just think that you have some great, great recommendations. So here is the thing. This year, my administrator, she's letting me sit in on a lot of stuff. And one of the things, the principal meeting last week, they're taking, of course, I told you we don't have any assistant principal. However, we are also going to be lacking an interventionist and a lead teacher. But they're going to somehow spread them out. It's going to be one per level. So how effectively, far as discipline and like you said, the evaluations, I'm just trying to see, like, wrap my head around if how effective is our principal really going to be with no help.
So they're not replacing the interventionist?
They are going to have one per level. So you'll have whoever's K2, they will be K2 for all the elementaries. If who's ever middle school, there will be middle school for all the middle schools.
When you say all, how many is that?
That is, hold on, I think it's something central, Mendenhall. That is, so that will be 6 elementary, 6 elementaries, 3 middle.
You can stop right there. Middle and high school takes care of a lot of that stuff within the class. But you're saying 6 elementaries to 1 interventionist?
6 elementaries to 1 interventionist and 1 lead teacher, 6 to 3 middle schools and 2 high schools, 1 person. Like, I don't see effectively how our district is even going to grow. Our district is very, very young right now. And when I say I got me a few grades, I got grades. Like, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, like, I'm a data person. I'm a data person, and I'm a realist. And I just cannot effectively see how we're going to be effective anywhere.
I don't either.
Because I told them, I said that it's not going to make any sense.
Your interventionist is going to be the MTSS coordinator for the district. And the thing she's going to do is
paperwork.
Have paperwork done and host tier 3 meetings, because by state law, she has to do that. Touching kids is not going to be the biggest priority, which then puts that work back on the teachers, because now the teachers are going to have to do tier 2 and tier 3 instruction. And how they're going to get that time in, I have no idea, because 6 schools is a lot. If y'all are a smaller school, maybe, but I don't see it. Nope.
Okay, because that's what I was telling them. Sometimes they call me the know-it-all. I say I'm not a know-it-all. I look at data and I say I want to do what's best for the kids. And I told them, just presenting a proposal, I'm like, okay, there's no way that our district is going to grow if we're cutting. You cut 12 people to make 4 positions.
So a lot of districts are cutting people because we were using, I'm not saying we, but districts were using ESSER 2 funds. That was the money that was put there for COVID. And that money's gone. There is no more. And so people, the districts that use that money to actually fund positions, they find themselves now at a place where they're having to cut those positions because there's no way to fund those salaries. As a principal, if I had assistant teachers, I would be training those people up so that I could actually, within the school that I'm in, filter in my tier 2 using my assistants.
And that's what, now my principal, she said that it's 3 of us in the building. It's one person that's working on the 486. So in her mind, she was like, because we have a lot of discipline, and our discipline would be, it would be curbed, like I told my principal, if we had a behavior specialist or a social worker within our school, because most of our discipline is EMD kids. So she was saying maybe she could volunteer a lead for each grade to help her with discipline. She's like, she's been crying, and she called me and she confided in me, and I told her, I said, well, I would ask anybody that I know if we can sit down at the table, because I talk about you all the time. I was like, I love Dr. Carper. I said, let me ask Dr. Carper and see what she say, and let's see, are we on the same page? Like, how can we get this? Because I don't know. I don't know.
That should really fall back to your SPED director, though. Whoever your SPED, we have SPED.
We don't have one now.
The wheels of the bus just falling off. Yeah.
We don't have that.
But now I'm gonna tell you, like, when it comes to discipline, and we have discipline, and it's been worse this year than it's been ever. And I just think that's just the nature of the kids right now. But when my EMD kids go off the rails, I call their parent, come get him. He's going home. This isn't up for debate. I'm not discussing it with you. Come get him. I had one to try to take the Promethean board off the wall. No, ma'am, he's done for the day. It was like 10:20. He's done. You got 30 minutes.
Well, I got one for you. We had Homeland Security at our school last week.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
For an EMD kid?
No, just for a regular kid. So our 8th grade boys have been going around playing this game of I got you or something, and where they like actually try to go up to the boys. It's a sexual connotation that I saw, and I have corrected them about it. And I told them, you're going to get in trouble. Stop it. I wrote them up the first time I saw it. Well, they were in another teacher's class and they were doing it. And somehow they all fell on this kid, and he ended up breaking 4 vertebrae. So, and another kid got hurt as well. So the kid that broke the 4 vertebrae, her grandfather is the sheriff for our district. So he was trying to press charges on kids. Well, the other kid that hurt his finger, his mom is a director for Homeland Security. So,
get your luck.
Yeah. So she came in clipboard ready of violations and trying to get people jobs. And our last board meeting was very interesting, to say the least. She wasn't really per se mad at the principal. She was just like, I've come to y'all several times about grants and getting SROs and teachers classroom management and I'm taking my child out the district, and it's been a lot. And
well, and until I got to this level, I'm gonna be honest, I was one of those people as well. Like, why we don't just hire these people? Why don't we just But what I have learned, and most of it is within my advocacy work that I do for administrators in schools, is that there is no money. You can't hire people when there's no salary. If you hire a teacher at this point, that's a $65,000 salary. You don't make that as a teacher if you're a beginning level teacher, but your district has to pay insurance. Your district has to pay for your sick days, all your leave. So that 1 year of a teacher costs a lot more. So when we start saying about all these positions that need to be added, there's no way to pay for them, which is, it's sad. Because in a state like Mississippi, they should put more money towards education, and that's my soapbox. But your principal's gonna have to get a bit creative. You work within the parameters that you are given. And if you have kids that are doing things that are completely off the wall, she's got to not be afraid to suspend kids. I'm gonna tell you the one thing, and I've been this way since I did my tour of duty in Jackson Public Schools. And I said to a parent one year, and I was a classroom teacher, this is my kid. I got 3 of them. They're at school. You're gonna parent your kid. This is your job. And I didn't care. My principal called me in and she said, you do know you can't talk to people like that. I said, you do know that's not my kid. If she can't come up here and correct her kid who wants to fight me, that's her job. And I'm of that mind, even as an administrator, and I don't have a problem calling parents because I've suspended their kid. Because at the end of the day, sometimes you have to make the parent's life uncomfortable in order for them to assist with raising their children. So
Okay.
you just have to, and I don't know what y'all's discipline model looks like. Do y'all follow PBIS? Do y'all have a minor, major write-up system? I don't mind
Everything,
sharing it.
yeah, share what you have, because when I say everything is fresh and crazy, yeah, I'll take whatever you share with me, because we have no PBIS. None of the teachers, when I walk in the room, I think I'm the only teacher that has a level system in their classroom.
Oh, okay. I'm a systems person, and that's the way I do life, is a system. If you don't have a system for something, you're always reacting to it. So
Okay.
her first thing, if discipline is an issue, is to get a discipline model in place. And it doesn't have to be PBIS. It could be conscious discipline. There is so much discipline, like models out there. I just particularly like PBIS. I've used it. I learned it in JPS, and I just feel like it works for kids because it has consistency.
Okay.
We have adapted a point system to ours. Every teacher has a clipboard and kids get marks for behavior. We follow a certain framework of is MAVS, make everyday grade, act responsibly and respectfully, value yourself and your school, stay safe and healthy. So that's our little motto. And everything that they do outside of what they're supposed to do falls under one of those.
Okay.
And we took a beating the first year we implemented, and I was just a literacy specialist. My principal was by herself that year. So I worked alongside her a lot in that role, developing our PBIS system. And we were a new school. When we opened our school, it was brand new, and parents were used to Disney. They said their quote, they left Disney World to come to Mansdale Upper. Yes, you did, because third grade, you got to pass the gate. So your kid has to sit down and has to focus and get work done. And we took a backlash. I mean, like a beating that first year. We met with more parents than we cared to, but it makes for a better year. This is my first year as the lead principal at a school I've been at since the doors open. And I'm doing the exact same thing that we did that first year. Parents are challenging every decision. So you have to put a system in place for discipline. Once she has a system in place for discipline, she's got to train the teachers around that system and that we are consistent. The teachers in my building will tell you that's the word of the day for me. Are you consistent? You can't get mad with a kid in March for something he was doing in August, September, because you have allowed it to happen all year. After she gets that system in place, I wouldn't even start the whole informal observation teacher rounds until I had my discipline and that system in place. Then I moved to the system of getting in, observing teachers and being seen. But her every day will be in a classroom in the hallways. And I'm sure she is doing that if she has that discipline.
Well, I told her that she needs to get more mobile. I mean, I said, you're just gonna have
I have a mobile desk. Like, I am hardly ever in my office, which ticks my bookkeeper off because I'm supposed to be approving stuff. I have a mobile desk that sits in the middle of our rotunda because our school has a middle rotunda, and then we have third, fourth, and fifth, so I can see all three halls at all times. As well as my specials are like in the back part of that, and I can see that's where I do most of my work. It's a Wi-Fi building. I don't need a cord, so
That's
that's
true.
yeah. Okay, April, I'm sorry. What was your question?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Harper.
Quick question. So for my second mentor, I am currently, I know you said if you're elementary, you need a middle school or high school. Will that work? Because I'm currently, our elementary is being renovated, so we're actually at a alternative school. So could I use her for my second mentor since you see all?
I don't answer any questions about mentorship. I don't. That's a Dr. Sellers question because I only teach you this class. Dr. Sellers, the person who monitors your practicum hours throughout this program. And so I don't like to tell students one thing and then that's not her thoughts. So I always say email her, and she's very flexible with this. So she would be your person.
Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
You too. Hi, Miss Jones.
Hey, Dr. Cockrell, how are you?
I am doing well.
Please forgive me. I've been trying to turn on my camera. I switched from my computer to my phone and I still can't get on. Um, so please forgive me for not being able to turn my camera on. I'm trying
So
to
your
see.
question is about dropping this course, and much like
Yes,
the
ma'am.
answer I gave to April, that would be something you have to speak with Dr. Sellers about.
Okay.
I don't know what the cut date was for dropping classes. I just teach this
Okay.
as adjunct. I literally don't even go over to the campus.
Okay. Okay.
So my part's
Because
from.
I'm just and I heard you and I totally agree with you. All of us are lifing
Oh
right
yeah.
now, and some are just harder than ever. I just have so many. I got a retiring principal who really kind of has checked out. I'm dean of students. I facilitate a Spanish class. I was an assistant test coordinator, now turned to test coordinator because that person just went out sick. So just got a lot of stuff going on, and this is certainly not